This podcast is best listened to with headphones.
You don't want to go in there all by yourself, do you?
C.s.w. presents Incarnation Red.
Episode 12. Contagion. My eyes go in and out of focus. Doesn't make much of a difference. I can't see much of anything in this darkness. Just what the orange streetlight coming from the broken hole in the wall chooses to illuminate. Bodies. Pieces of bodies. Pieces of people. Blood stains on the cinder block walls. Two peeled-off faces plastered slapdash onto other limbless torsos. From a crudely strung clothesline above me hangs severed fingers, toes, bloody uprooted teeth, and each finger has a fingerprint. Each piece was somebody. In the far corner of the room, someone shakes in constant fear or disease. Closer, to my right, somebody sits, leaned against a pile of broken wooden boards, bleeding quietly. Both hands have been removed, and I can't remember if it was me or them who did it. They don't move their arms, but they are still alive, eyes pale and lost in a haze, staring directly forward almost serenely, while they hold up their bleeding wrists as if presenting them to no one. Chains hanging from the ceiling creak. They creak. I stand up from the half-destroyed and cushionless sofa I was sitting on, wobbling a little as I do so, and then even more as I walk. Over to the hole in the wall, where the cinder blocks have crumbled and opened a view to the city street. I look outside, watch for a few minutes, or an hour or so. A few cars pass. I rub my hand against the cinder and let the grit and dust coat my palm, then rub it hard into my facial features. Gray crumbles tumble and fall weightlessly into my beard. I can taste them. I turn around, and the one with the severed hands has died, so I approach the body. I can still hear the other one shivering. I look at the fingers, toes, teeth of the body, then look up at the ceiling, or where I assume the ceiling is. Ceiling. I give one more glance to the shivering one, then turn around, crawl through the hole in the wall. This building is barely a building anymore, but it is tall. At least 3 stories. I walk through the grass, around to the back of the structure, where the ladder is. I start climbing, reach the top. I hear a car pass in the meantime, but just one. So when I reach the top, I know this will be easy. I know there won't be anyone to witness it, to try and plead with me to stop, to call the police or take it upon themselves to save me, when all that would do is doom them. Because if they knew, if they had any conception of what I am saving them from, they wouldn't interfere. They would know that my life is beyond saving, and all I can do with its remainder is try to save theirs. They would know that if I don't do this, much worse things await them than the simple task of witnessing a man's suicide. If you could even call me that anymore. I step forward, reach the edge, become weightless. I hear a crack from outside the gas station. I feel myself getting a little dizzy, my focus blurring, but then come to and look around. It's completely empty in here, and the likelihood of someone coming inside the store at this hour isn't high, so I step outside and look around the street. I don't see much out of the ordinary. I look in the direction that the sounds seem to come from, but don't see anything special. Just the same long line of long-since shut-down marketplaces, and the same run-down cement structure that attempts to impersonate a building. As a general rule, I try to keep a maximum proximity away from that thing. I go back inside, close the door. My shift is over in just a couple minutes, and my manager would keel over before he gave me a parking spot at the gas station, so when I clock out and change out of my uniform, I hit the road and start walking. My car is something like 30 minutes away, and this part of town is really not a place I'd like to be walking after the sun goes down, let alone at midnight. So I keep my pace brisk, not giving the local flavor any opportunities. Nevertheless, I guess a brisk pace isn't enough, as when I'm just a few minutes away from my car, I hear a voice behind me. The usual thing, the "got $1 to spare?" and in response to my saying no, the "hey man, where are you going so fast?" line, swiftly followed by, "You hear me? I'm talking to you." I keep walking, stolidly, not dignifying him with a response or validating him with a sudden sprint away. But his voice gains a startling proximity, just as my car comes into view, and I can almost feel him just behind me. But no. On any other night, at this point, I would just let him take whatever money he wanted and make it out of this in one piece. Actually, I would have done that quite a while ago. But for some reason, tonight I have no intention of it. Tonight, I'm not caving. My car is just a few feet away, and I pull out my keys. He gains speed, puts his hand on my shoulder as I touch the door handle, but I throw it off of me. I look him in the eye and say, "Ask me one more time and I'll cut your fucking tongue out and feed it to you." The hell? What the hell did he just say to me? I opened my mouth to say something back, but, well, to be honest, I'm a little taken aback by the nerve of this kid. And I think he is too, because after his little comment, I see his wiry little face go pale, and his eyes widen, and he's realized just what he's gotten himself into. I pull out my knife, but the little runt ducks into the driver's seat faster than I knew was possible. The blade scratches up the window, but not much else. I reach to pull open the door, but it's already locked, and then the car is shrieking its way out of the lot and down the street. I yell after it uselessly. Little son of a bitch comes up with one sharp retort, then thinks he's all grown up now. Whatever. I got places to be anyway. I pull my coat around me, hood over my head, and duck through a few alleyways. It's 20 minutes or so away, or 15 if you use the alleys. In the basement of a completely unmarked building, but I know it when I see it. I recognize that unique shade of black on this kind of building, like it's member to the night. I recognize the alleyway door, just a few feet before some dumpsters and a chain-link fence. And I recognize the music playing on the inside, familiar and foreboding, welcoming and uninhabitable. But not for me. I slide in between bodies that press and grind in movements slow as a sunset, some of them half naked, nearly all of them sent into oblivion on wings of reds and oxycodone. Through the glaring red light and weak but rapid strobe, I find one of the tables and collapse into the wireframe chair. I measure out a line, press face to table. Lean back in my seat, Watch the room. Bodies half anesthetized sway slowly, rubbing against one another, fingers clasped like Siamese spiders. Men laughing, women snickering. There's some kind of energy passing between them, from one to the other. Conduits. Some hazy languor that colors eyes red and powers the movements of their bodies like lazy puppet strings. In the red light, shadows are splayed starkly under their features, under eyes and mouth and chin, like they were bleeding black and smiling through it. I measure out another line. Scan the room again. They all still move and sway, say things pointlessly beneath music so loud no one will ever hear them. Wonder how loud they would have to be for anyone outside this place to hear. Makes you wonder what all could be done here. What all could be done to someone. If that little punk kid were here, I could do whatever I wanted to him. No sound heard. Could pick him apart limb from limb. Could see what yellow entrails are hiding inside his slightly little body. But he's not here. He's not here, but others are. And it's funny, this curiosity doesn't feel any different when it's aimed toward them. I'd still like to find out. I'd still like to find out just what all I could do to someone. Without being heard, I mean. After all, at this point, looking around the room beneath that heavy red aurora glow, I'm starting to wonder just how human anyone is. Their eyes deadened in narcotic vacuums, their bodies like vases waiting to be smashed. Empty vases. Empty of sensation, empty of self, empty of anything but meat and blood. Would they even mind? Would they even mind if I took one of them apart? If I tore them open and exposed everything inside? And if they did, would that matter? I hear a bottle shatter, and I turn quickly to my left. Two guys are getting into it, one having just shattered a bottle over the other's head. I stand up immediately. I don't know why, but I stand. And I approach them. They're throwing punches now, grabbing arms and tossing around, mute shouts firing from their lips. I'm nearly there, but other people surround them, making a little crowd around the exhibition, just standing and staring like a sports audience with no other purpose than to gawk, to marvel, not to actually do anything. What I'm going to do is... I push a few people out of the way, or try to at least, but there's no way past the useless herd. I have no choice but to back away. I stand there. I stand there with arms half raising repeatedly, with nothing to do with them. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the same back alley door I entered through open up, and a shape exiting through it. I head for it immediately. I'm in the alleyway before the door even fully closes, and the nighttime darkness swallows me whole. I ask the man who left, some skull jacket wearing 20-something with a beanie, where he's going. He says he has some things to do, but I'm not listening. I'm thinking about what's inside him. And I want to find out. So I rush upon him, raking my fingers into the skin of his neck so I can tear him open and see. I reach around and pull the pistol out of my belt and thrust the butt of it into his neck, then kick him off me. He lands on his feet, but when I get to mine and point the gun straight at his head, he turns and bolts down the alleyway. I put the gun away. It was really just to get the guy away from me. I don't have time to play shoot and run, and I definitely don't want any unwanted attention tonight. No, I have other plans. I make the journey down a couple blocks to where I had parked, the most legal-looking parking spot I could find. Then I get in my car and make the journey down quite a few blocks, but blocks I am familiar with after this many weeks. Turn by turn, I make my way into one of the richer neighborhoods of the city, then, finding the street I have memorized by now, come to a slow stop and park. I stare at the house for a good 10 minutes or so, just to be sure. I know this guy's schedule pretty damn well by now, well enough to list out his typical hour-by-hour day. I look at my watch. It's just a little after 2. On this day of the week, he works much later than that even. Without fail, every week. So there's no chance he's in there right now. I reach into my back seat, whip out both of the duffel bags I brought, then step out of the car. There's really no discreet way to make it across the street and his lawn, so I settle for being quick. In seconds, I'm in the skinny little gap between his house and the next, going at the lock of his back door. With cover this good, I can afford to take my time picking the lock, and it's not long before I've got the door open and I'm stepping inside. The house is pitch black, so I let my eyes adjust thoroughly before proceeding further. I've got my little pocket flashlight, but want to use it as little as possible, just to be sure. And when my eyes do adjust, I've got plenty to look at. In a city this big, you can't really own a very large or elaborate house, but this guy sure has tried. Illustrious items on every shelf and surface, expensive-looking glassware in the kitchen, and the thing I decide I'll start with, a well-stocked and well-equipped entertainment unit in the living room, with a huge widescreen TV on it. It's like the guy was asking for it. I unzip the first duffel bag and head for the entertainment unit. Plenty meat to pick off those bones. I grab the cable box and game systems, fisting them one by one into the bag. Then I go for the DVDs and I freeze. I swear inside my head. How could I have gotten it wrong? I watched this guy, this house, for like 7 weeks straight. How could today be the exception to his routine? I hear his voice calling out, asking who's there in a voice that's trying to be authoritative. I should move. I should cut my losses, bolt out the door, into my car, down the road, and into the next city, with or without the duffel bags. But I don't move. I don't bolt out the door. For some reason, I'm not done here yet. It's not over. I hear his footsteps on the hardwood in the hallway. I turn to face them. I see his pale silhouette come forth from the darkness. Then he turns on the lights. I whip out my gun immediately, before he has the chance to say a word. I point it straight at his skull, and his shaky hands raise immediately. I tell him to back up, to keep his hands where I can see them. He begins backing into the hallway, and I follow him. I keep shouting at him as I follow deeper into the hallway, then into the bathroom. And I've forgotten about the duffel bags. I've got him hunkered down, covering his head, on the floor of his bathroom. I've got the gun almost touching his head, but it just feels so hollow. The trigger feels like it's made of thread, the grip like it's of paper. I need something more. Something heavier. I put the pistol back under my belt. Lift the tank cover off the toilet. That's better. It's waiting solid in my hands. And since he's already in position, I throw the thing down upon his head, striking the back of his cranium with a solid and satisfying crack. His forward movement collapses into the floor, but I don't stop there. It's not enough yet. I throw the lid back down onto his upturned face. I pull it again, until the white walls splatter red, until the lid breaks and I over his head, until I've gotten this sickening thing out of The impact ceases. The lid clatters to the floor. I hear his gasps of fury turn to gasps of shock. All the more shocked when I rise to look at him. He turns and runs back into the hallway, so I follow him.
I see him in the living room, struggling with his bags. I call out for him, and when he sees me, he doesn't bother with the bags when he runs. His dying legs aren't strong enough to pursue him, but it doesn't matter. I met him to the front door. I watch him turn and see me from across the lawn, and his screams renew like a fresh river of blood. He runs away, and I turn to my right, to the house next door. And I walk towards it so I can find the window. I look inside so I can find my neighbor. I smash open the window so I can find the next.
My eyes adjust to the darkness. My mind adjusts to consciousness. I blink a few times, wipe the sweat off my face, try to slow the heaving, rapid breaths. What had I been dreaming of? Flesh, bone, something writhing and pulsating between lobes. And then something loud and close. I hear a distant roar, coming closer to intelligibility, like my ears are turning slowly back on. Then the realization hits me with solidity, along with the sound of my wife shouting at me, emerging from the dull roars as from the ocean. I whip around to confirm it. Yes, the window is shattered. Yes, the house alarm is going off. Yes. Yes, I should do something about it. I leap from bed, sprint into the kitchen to grab a large meat knife, then straight out the front door. I practically kick it open, then pivot around and wheel into the space between my house and the neighbors, where the shattered window is. And when I reach it, I am motionless. I just stare at the heap of bloodied flesh lying on the ground. Because what do I do? What do I do? I should call the police. I'll do that. I'll go inside and call the police. I lunge forward and sink the knife into the flesh, up to the hilt, then draw it back out, down again, into the chest, up, and down again, then up. I just had to make sure. After all, this guy shattered my window. I had to make sure my family was safe. In a moment like this, the bloody knife is in my hand. The blade is unbent, undamaged. So much more solid than the flesh it pierced. I tell my wife it's okay, we're safe, but call the police. Somehow I didn't get any blood on my person, so I make my way back into the house, rinse the knife off in the sink. I place it directly into a cabinet, an obscure one, then go off to get dressed. When the cops come, they examine the scene of our yard, our shattered window, the broken glass scattered in our bedroom. Then they search the neighbor's house and find evidence of breaking and entering and attempted robbery, along with blood and signs of a conflict in his bathroom. They take our testimony with minimal enthusiasm, jotting down details as each of us speaks. The thing that seems to pique their interest the most, though, is how the body got to my yard. They show me a duffel bag they found inside the neighbor's house and ask me if I recognize it. I don't, and I tell them so, though I suppose I can't blame them for suspecting me. But I don't mind. It's not like I did anything. I did what anyone would have done in this situation. The police take the body, take all the photographs they need, and once all our testimonies are given and everything is wrapped up, they leave. I bring my wife back inside, tell the kids that everything's fine now and they can go back to sleep. My wife and I talk it over for a bit, try to evaluate just what happened here tonight, but ultimately decide that getting some sleep now is the best answer. We undress and get back into bed, and she falls asleep within minutes. But I can't. I just can't stop myself from thinking about who would do something like that. Who could do something like that to an innocent old man? I had seen my neighbor just a couple of times, but in all cases he seemed like a perfectly kind individual, good-tempered and friendly. For someone to just bludgeon him to death over trying to steal his stuff. But it wasn't to death, was it? He made his way over to the house. He must have been just barely alive when he did it. But why break the window? I can't sleep. No matter how hard I try, I can't. I need to get some fresh air. So I get out of bed, quietly, so as to not wake her. Get my shirt back on and my coat. My pants, my shoes. I slip quietly out of the bedroom. And I'm feeling a little nervous and, well, you never know when it's this late in a city like this, so I fetch the kitchen knife from the cabinet I hid it in, slip it into the belt of my pants, hidden beneath my coat. Not that I need it. Not that I'll use it, really, just you can never be sure when you might need to defend yourself. I mean, just look at tonight. I certainly didn't expect my neighbor to die, let alone end up dead in my yard, let alone somehow shatter the window before doing so. And when the time came, the knife was what I needed, to make sure I was safe. After all, dead as he was, he still broke through my window. He still set my house alarm going off like mad. That's why I stabbed him. Because you never know. The night sky is cavernous, and the city streets are quiet. Not too many people around. It's fairly late, I suppose, and the only people still walking around at this hour are likely the people you'd want to avoid. Junkies, thieves, murderers. Just like the one who murdered my neighbor. He can't have made it far, I reckon. He must have just made a run for it in a random direction. After all, he did leave behind his bags. So he must have been running from something. Must have just run in a random direction. So anybody out here could be him, really, if you think about it. Any of the people I'm seeing right now could be the person who killed my neighbor. I wonder which one is. I just feel like whoever is responsible should be held responsible, that's all. I mean, for someone to just do something like that and then run away, it's despicable. Anyone who would do something like that, they're a threat to everyone. They endanger everybody's safety. And is that how I'm to go on? Knowing that just next door, a crazed killer decided to mercilessly claim my neighbor, and it could easily be me next, and I'm supposed to just go along with that? No. No, I don't think I can go along with that. I think something needs to be done about that.
And he can't have made it far. I see the man standing in the alleyway. I see him standing with his arms folded, glaring at me. And something is telling me that it was him. He's the one. So I'd better do something about it. But after I'm done with him, after his throat has bled out all it had to bleed, and the wounds drawn into his chest have gone dry, I realize it must not have been him.
No, he's not the one. He doesn't look right. So I'll have to find someone else.
But after I'm done with the next one, his thighs slit open, his tongue cut out for good measure, I realize that it's not him either.
And even the next one, after I've pulled him from his walk to the train station into the alleyway, where I can clean him like a fish, crack his ribcage up, and draw shapes onto his organs. Even he doesn't seem right. Neither does the one with the slowly sawed-off limbs, nor does the one with the gouged-out eyes that I forced him to chew and swallow before caving in his skull with an alleyway door.
Even the one with the ripped-out teeth and the peeled-off face just doesn't quite feel like enough. Like I need to do more. Need to go to all lengths to find the one, and once I do,
I'll feel better. Or I won't. And then I'll have to find someone new again. But it's just to be sure. There's nothing wrong with being sure.
looking around, I realize that I've wound up very far from home. Very far. I'm surrounded by rundown buildings, shut-down marketplaces, and a cinder block half-building that's got holes broken through its walls.
And in front of this half-building, I see a man, barely alive, leg broken against the joint, blood spilling from his lips as he lays, shuddering, covered in dirt and dust. And he looks like just the person I'm looking for. The violent, the evil, the murderous. Or at least, he looks like he could be. After all, anybody could be. Even I could be. But better safe than sorry. So I lunge forward with the knife aimed straight at his chest.
And now it's back. Now I can finish the job. Now I can finish all of this. So I take the man's knife, pull it from his already hesitating fingers, and plunge it deeper, deeper, deeper into my chest. And it's over.
Ah!